We are ready to rock and roll. The Real Kyper and Bourne show once again, coming to you live and in color. Sportsnet 590, The Fan. I don't know what's next. Sportsnet Plus from 4 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got new 30 here. Third wheel. I'm just skipping all the intros right now.
Great.
Because as we alluded to the other day, JB, Sammy McKee has bolted us for Vegas, baby, Vegas. Do you even think he's listening right now?
Yeah, definitely not. If he is, he has failed at the idea of getting away.
All right, let's welcome in that third wheel. Daniele Franceschi, Disco Dan.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. This is fun. This is cool. Fun experience.
Really happy to have you here. This is awesome. Man.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. This is great. I got to admit, like, red light goes on, no nerves.
No?
No, zero, none. But earlier today, even yesterday, as I'm listening on the way home and you guys even said my name, I'm like, oh, geez, here we go. But now I'm good. Okay. I am ready to rock.
That's great, man. I love it. I love it.
Let me just tell you from personal experience, when you think you're dead and buried in the minors, just like that, you're up and you're in the big leagues.
Playing with the Flyers.
Right? You are our Pontus Holmgren.
Yes. No, I love that.
You were in the minors. Hey, can somebody notice me, please? Can somebody know? Does anybody know I'm alive down here?
Are we Matthews and Marner in this comparison?
I'm okay with that if you are.
Yeah, 100%. That sounds
Am I
good.
up for renegotiation?
Can I get 12 schmil?
I'm not going to deny you guys of that. That's for sure. No,
we'll take
I
it.
love Pontus. Yes.
He's been great.
Legend of the show, Pontus Holmgren.
Well, welcome aboard. And you couldn't have timed it better because all we've had is doom and gloom Sammy, his beloved Leafs, in a tailspin.
Yeah.
And we've beaten it up all week. A very tough week for the hockey club. A very tough week for Sheldon Keefe. Matthews with the hat trick.
Yeah.
A much better result last night in Calgary, and you're here to just reap the rewards of all that positivity.
I'm thrilled.
I'm a little cynical, like Sammy all the time.
Are you?
I am. I'm very cynical.
Oh, no.
I am. But
I just built you up.
No, but I will choose to stay positive. I mean, God, we're talking about a guy here, Austin Matthews, goes out, puts the team on his back, cape on, says, get on. We're going for a ride. He's on pace for 71 goals.
Love it.
Come on. 4 hat tricks this season, 11 in his career. He's just, it's electric.
There's your positivity.
That's it. That's all we need. Austin Matthews.
If outside of Austin's performance last night with the goals, the one thing that stood out to me was when the camera panned to Sheldon Keefe and there was just this sense of maybe 1,000 pounds off his shoulders.
When they actually won. There was a handshake there was with Chenault or someone where he was really thrilled to be shaking that hand.
And good on him, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
come on, like outside of what we have to do as a show and try to be as objective as possible and say some things that don't actually bode well for a lot of Leaf fans. I was really happy for the guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was a big night, and to get the performance from a guy that you hope you can count on when you need a performance was nice. And then to get the piece of luck you needed on the day you needed the luck with the overturned call, with the hair of the fabric of the glove touching a puck that saves you a win.
Outstanding.
Everything went as it could have for him in the best possible way. So there you go. Did it fix all the problems?
No, not even close.
Oh, okay. I thought that was
But
it.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do on the rest of the hour on this Leaf edition of the Real Kyper and Bourne show. But Disco, we're glad you're aboard.
Happy to be here.
Just don't be too good because that will force JB and I to make a very tough decision on Monday.
No, come on.
And for those,
Sammy's the best.
And
Sammy's the best.
For those listening, it is Daniele, and I will be calling him Yele henceforth. So if you're looking, if that makes sense to you, that's what we're doing.
And I'm sticking with Disco.
Disco it is. Disco and Yele.
And that's another thing I like about him. He could be great in any era, including the disco era.
Versatile guy.
That's
Versatile guy.
Yes.
All right, let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Clippers of the hour. because we didn't go to him yesterday at all, did we?
Oh, we got into some stuff, man.
Yeah, we did. We went deep. But let's get his overview of closing out last night's win.
I love, first of all, that through the third period, we just played hockey. Guys didn't panic. Guys weren't tight. They were loose. The way it's supposed to be as a night like this tonight is that we're supposed to be hard. Supposed to find a way through it. And I was, as much as I would have loved to have some more goals and some breathing room, we needed this here tonight. I thought the guys handled it very well. It's one of the best third periods we've played, maybe all season with a lead. Really proud of the guys tonight.
How nervous were you? When we left yesterday's show, I said, tongue in cheek, of course, but like the best thing that could happen is them going down early in the hockey game. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't go.
Yeah,
the worst thing that can happen is a 2-0 lead.
Yeah.
They chased it, albeit kind of an ugly first period, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it was a different vibe. But how nervous were you guys on holding the lead in the third?
Well, the goal to make it 4-3, being as strange as it was, it started to feel a little bit, you didn't know that you were going to get the luck later in the game. So it kind of felt like, is this just the point where everything goes wrong for Keith and this team and it all comes unglued? But so, yeah, Kip, I don't think I was super comfortable with where they were at that point in the game. But the second period, they played so well. And to see them after they gave up the goal to not fall all over themselves and start finding it again, I think a really positive sign for them. So, a little bit of nerves there for him, but started to feel okay about things.
It was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I will say very nerve-wracking. Yeah. To me, there were two kind of critical inflection points in that entire hockey game. One is the Matthews goal in the first period, undoubtedly, because they had been hemmed in. We see some of the same issues we've been seeing for weeks with that club. And then they get that moment of magic, right?
Yeah.
Turns the tide. They go into the break. Okay, reset. It's a 1-goal game. You're right there. The other one is the hand pass. Yeah. Like that right there, a team that has struggled to protect leads, right? That's been the narrative for the last week. And that nearly makes it 4-4, and we're sitting there saying, okay, well, how does this group respond now? So the fact that they didn't have to face that adversity of it being back to square one, back to 4-4, we're all even, I think it's a bonus. But, man, to your point, Kyper, just Keith looks so relieved. Yeah. Like, just immensely. And the stoicism that he had on his face when they panned to him on the challenge, too. Like, he was just, you could sense it underneath. Like, their weight coming off his shoulders altogether just to get a win. Even listening to him after the game, like, it's just a little too happy after winning a 4-3 game in January. You know what I mean?
It's a job saver.
You told me his name eludes me. Who's the video guy?
Jordan Bean.
Sam
Kim as well.
Did you not text our group chat last night saying, like, if this guy wanted $1 million a year, he might be worth it if they.
You know what's funny?
If it's an extra home game.
Well, think about it. I mean, if they are, I think they're 18 for 19 on video challenges this year, which I think the league average is probably around 60-70% getting them right. So if you're 4 or 5 goals better than average.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Only 70?
It's around there. I don't have the exact number, but it's around there. And so if you're a few goals better, that's another win or two a year.
Yeah.
That can be the difference between home ice and not home ice, playoffs and not.
I was incredibly impressed with the video call for only one reason, because the majority of times when you see the coaches contemplating it, it's goaltender interference. Yeah. It could be offside. Yeah. But that one had everybody scratching their heads on what it could possibly be. And when you found it on the replay, as subtle as it was, that's a hell of a pickup. On video.
Mm-hmm. It truly is. And, Keith calling the timeout to buy time to continue to get different angles of it before making that decision. A crucial moment. And let's be honest, sucks. Like, that's a goal, right? Like, it's not impactful on the play. It's a tough break for Calgary, but hey, we'll take it.
All right, let's go to our second Kippers Clipper on Sheldon's real MVP last night.
They're vital. I mean, you guys get to see it when we have these challenges and these key moments. They're so dialed in, but I see it every day just because they allow this whole thing to run. You know, there's so much that goes on with the coaching staff and how we communicate to the players and prepare the team and those guys. For me, like I said, you get to see it on display with the challenges, but those guys are MVPs of our staff every day.
Give them the belt. Give them the belt. Honestly,
that's where it should have gone instead of Matthews.
Right? That would have been great.
The one thing that call did last night, and I give, like, this is not me dumping on Martin Jones here, because he had a hell of a game.
He did.
Okay? But what that challenge did was take away the fact that he gave up a bad goal.
Yeah. You're right. We don't have to have that conversation,
but
we are.
But we are, right?
Yes.
And if by chance they tie it up and somehow lose the game in overtime or a shootout, which has been a little common lately, we might be starting this show on
what do we do in net?
Martin Jones. Like, you can't win if you give up a bad goal. Yeah. He did give up a bad goal last night. It was just happened to be disallowed.
Yeah.
But usually bad goals come back and haunt you. But outside of that, he is a major reason why, besides Austin's hat trick, they ended up with 2 points in regulation.
What do you think about the way the Leafs came out in the game? So I think that's a good point and a complete thought. I have nothing to add to that if you're good on Jones.
Yeah.
What do you think about their first period last night, given the stakes and where they're at in the season? Do you put anything to it?
I don't, that's a couple of games where in the first shift they're giving up a really. I remember Colorado. I believe Edmonton too, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the Leafs scored first shift in Edmonton.
Oh yeah, not Edmonton. Yeah. I can't remember about Detroit, but like Jones has to make a really big save.
Oh yeah, Brody
in the first 13, 14 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they didn't exactly come out like a house on fire, but
it was a bad first period.
It was. And so that does bring us to, Matthews just making a play, making a superstar play where he pulls it through his feet and, shoots one past the goalie.
A phenomenal individual effort.
Yeah.
And watching it, obviously with Gregor still on the ice and McMahon, it's off a line change. But Gregor butchered that play.
Was he trying to get it deep?
Any other team, and that's a giveaway, and it's going back the other way.
And was that after, or I think it was after earlier in the game that Gregor didn't get one out along the wall, and they cut to Keefe on the bench, and you see him say to Gregor, "Soft, too soft." So like that could have been the end of Gregor's whatever. Ends up being an assist, a plus. He plays the whole game, like really got the team going.
Yeah.
It's a game of inches. I mean, it's funny how it works sometimes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to you guys here? All right, let me pose this. The fact they came out the way they did it surprise you at all?
I think I expected you're going to see one of two things, and it was going to be really good or really bad. And so I guess I wasn't surprised that it was one of two things.
The cynical fan in me says we shouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
Because that's been the MO of this group with that core for years. The way they start games, right? Like they're known for being flat, and then post-game, what do we hear? Yeah, we came out a little flat. It's okay. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
So fix it, right?
I think the question is, and I'll just say what I think people are thinking at that point is this is the coach that was on the hot seat, and the team didn't seem to come out for him. I was that they won. I don't know.
It still is.
So I don't know how much
alleviated.
The seat heater went from 3 to 2.
Yes, it
in
did.
The car, I think
it did.
Yeah,
it did. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of what possibly could happen on Saturday night, let this one breathe for a little while longer on our show.
Yeah.
So let's go to Keefe on the amazing effort and the performance of Austin Matthews. Clip 4.
We're very fortunate to have him as part of our group. But while he scored big goals tonight, he also defended extremely hard, which, especially once we get the lead, now we need him to defend and we need him to compete and lead the way that way. I thought he was great in that regard. I thought Marner was great in that regard. Willie, JT, those guys really led the way for us up front. I thought Yarncroc was unbelievable tonight in terms of how he played, how he managed the game, and we got good efforts from the rest of the group. Like Bert was really dialed in and competing today. Matthew Nyes seemed to be coming back for us and had great play, shot the puck with authority to lead to Austin's, I believe that might have been the third goal. So yeah, through the lineup, I was really pleased with a lot of guys, and score goal 6 on 5 on the delayed penalty, score goal on the power play at a key time. Penalty kill was excellent. When we had to defend with the goalie out, we were excellent. So a lot of really positive things for us to take out of this game.
I'll say this about the man. He's kept it positive.
Oh, he's trying to juice it up. Mm-hmm. Juice it up. And, give everyone a little bit of something here.
He's giving everybody a little something.
Way to go, Nyes. You shot it hard.
Is that because the confidence is so fragile?
Yeah, I think so.
That you need to overcompensate those comments?
I think so. I think you got a team that has talent that you're trying to get the best out of them, and if they're beaten down, it's probably not the way to do it. So
I will agree with him on Tavares' effort. Like, you can see the guy is trying, but you can also see there's a level of frustration in his game.
Forcing shots to me.
A lack of confidence right now, which I don't know if you want to go back to his early days in the GTHL with the Marlies, I don't know if he's ever probably felt this way at any point since he's first put on skates. Because we know he's always been a dominant minor hockey league player, dominant with the Oshawa Generals, dominant when he's played World Juniors. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But to go what he's going through right now, I'm not sure he's had a lot of experience to fall back on.
No, I mean, in our wonderful lineup here, I would bet my left leg it hasn't happened that Tavares' point drought has reached 6 games.
Yeah.
Been nearly 15 years, according to Yele, since Tavares has been kept off the score sheet this long. He had a 6-game drought since 2011.
He's also been a -2 in 4 straight games. That is
crazy.
wild.
He has spent a tremendous amount of time in his own zone.
Yeah. No,
and again last night.
For sure. Bertuzzi, Nylander, Tavares, when they are not playing well, it's a tough watch in the D zone. Circling around, trying to find a guy. They can't snuff out a cycle.
And we're talking about stops and starts where he's not. That's the feet get heavy.
Yeah. I did think he worked.
Oh, no. It's never an issue. This guy's a pro.
Yeah.
Okay? Non-issue. Yeah. He will give you everything he has.
Working his bag off. There it is. And that's actually a clip about Tavares, that clip. Me saying that.
Who is that?
That's me. Working his bag off. Talking about
that's
JT.
You.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that was on television. And I think it's the only time in my Sportsnet career I got a note from the bosses. I was like, you can't say that.
But I've heard it 1,000 times.
They said
from
you can't
everybody.
say that, and we've just clipped it and ran it right through. Whatever. I don't know. No one has followed up on it, so apparently we're okay.
You can't question his effort. Because, Brian Lawton, you guys had him on yesterday, and he made a good point. I thought he said, it was really, really poignant where he talked about, I had no questions that he would reach whatever the ceiling of his potential would be. Because that's how hard a worker he is. He's got the maturity. It's always been his MO. So that part we can't question.
Right.
I do, the effectiveness of that line right now, not great. They had some magic earlier in the season, Nylander, but we've seen at times they've struggled to kind of mesh, right? Like the chemistry is hit and miss with them. And then Willie himself, he has 2 assists last night, but was he at his best?
It's a great question. How did you think Willie played last night?
I saw him pushing a little harder.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. But
he made a couple plays, obviously.
This is, again, his longest stretch where he's gone all season long without looking dominant.
Right.
Mid. So, I would worry probably a lot more about where Tavares is for the rest of the year, or hopefully for Leaf fans going into the playoffs, than I ever would Willie.
Yeah.
So the only question is will Tavares come back and be still a no doubt second line centerman for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or is he now going to be in a position where Sheldon Keefe has to find ways to protect him, which could mean moving to the wing a little bit, could mean less defensive zone faceoffs. Obviously, you're going to keep him on the power play, but
yeah, he killed there last year.
Where is he now in terms of where you think is he just going through something temporarily? Is he going to get back to what you have known of him for the majority of his career?
One thing I will say is the power play used to, under Spencer Carberry, ran pretty heavy through Marner and into Tavares, right? A lot of looks. Tavares had 38 power play points last year, which was, I think, 6th or 7th in the NHL, and was half his point total thereabout. And this year it's a lot of flank stuff with Matthews and Nylander.
But I've watched Marner on the power play the majority of this year. He doesn't touch the puck.
No.
And I'm like, this is crazy. This guy should be touching it the most.
100% he should on the power play.
He's supposed to be your quarterback. He's supposed to set the table. He's supposed to be the distributor.
The passing.
When I see him in front of the net while everybody's trying to do something around him, I'm like, what's wrong with this picture?
You want Matthews to get it when it's time to hit it. You want Willie to get it when it's time to hit it. You want, those guys to move it until it gets to your triggers.
I want it to go through Marner.
Yeah, and Tavares is another trigger. You have plenty of guys who will pull the trigger, but it should be in his hands a lot more.
And last night was a 4-on-3 Marner's goal, which looked great.
Willie, what a play.
6-on-5 goal, delayed penalty. They do a good job there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those guys, that's where they're lethal. We know that. Yeah. It's when they have time and space and the ability to make decisions, right?
So a couple of days
100%.
ago, you told us, you kind of had evidence from what I've been saying all year is that they're not a good passing team. So the stat that you came across that made, announced them as the worst passing team in the offensive zone, is that strictly based on the counting the number of touches?
So, completed passes. So
completed
as a percentage of attempted passes to completed passes.
Does your site actually break it down even further with the Toronto Maple Leafs to tell me which line touches the most or which touches the less, the least?
Don't think line, but player.
I would believe that even Matthews and Marner this year and whoever's been on their line isn't even the top passing team on their, or the line on their team.
Yeah.
I would like to see how it truly breaks down on the number of touches. And I don't know if that site does it.
I just think the second they get the puck, they want it to go into the middle for a shot. They want to get there right away, right?
Well, you got a 70-goal scorer.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It happened with Brett Hall.
All the lines,
and it happened with McGillney. And last time I checked, they weren't top teams, except for the year maybe Brett Hall had 86. The year he had 70, I think they weren't a top team.
I mean, McDavid's 65 last year. Were they tops in the West? I think they were. Close to.
It's not a guarantee if you got a 70-goal scorer, you're scoring on a top team.
For sure.
Is my point.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not. And, spreading that around a little bit would be good, but it's just tough to see on this team where you spread it around too. They certainly need Nylander to get back to scoring. No goals since he signed his contract 6 games ago, and him as their sort of second shooting threat as a non-threat right now is hurting things significantly.
All right, I'm Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, in for Sammy McKee, Disco Dan Franceschi. Did I say that right?
You got it, Kyper. You nailed it.
If I got your whole family watching, I feel a lot of pressure right now.
I don't know if they're all watching.
Are you kidding me?
I don't know.
You just got called up.
Yeah,
they're watching.
I'm a Franceschi.
I don't know what the situation is right now, but we'll see. They're aware.
There's a party going on at the Franceschi household right now.
You think Woodbridge is watching? I don't know about that.
Repping Woodbridge.
For sure.
I love it.
One more thought on Austin Matthews, because it's a sound which is kind of incredible that you hear on the road. MVP.
Yeah.
The chant of MVP.
No.
Okay. That's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
Legit, not legit?
No, I mean, if he scores 70 goals, he's going to be on the ballot. He's going to be on everyone's ballot somewhere. But I don't know how many points he is behind Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid, but the consistency in all-around play hasn't been to the level he has been at in previous seasons. He's better than last year, all around for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think his Hart Trophy year, he was an elite defensive player. I voted it. He was on this at my Selke ballot.
Yeah, I 65, 70 goals, and if they trend in the spot that they're in, if they sneak into the third spot in the Atlantic or a wild card spot, I have him so on the outside looking in on an MVP.
I just try to imagine the Leafs without him last night.
Yeah.
You know, like it's impossible to think that this guy is not their most valuable guy by miles.
11th in scoring in the NHL right now, Austin Matthews. 54 points. Obviously, the 37 goals leading the league, but that puts him, 21 points behind Kucherov, for example?
Yeah.
He's 19 behind McKinnon.
Yeah.
So, and those teams are having, obviously, like in Colorado, obviously in particular, having a much better season.
And,
so,
I mean, he's got, how many assists does he have?
17.
Yeah, and that's probably, that might not be in the top 125.
Don't know. Yeah.
If you look at, I'm staring at this list right now, top 15, nobody has fewer than 25 at least.
Yeah.
And he's got 17.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of it for sure. Factors in.
All right. Blue line for you, still very challenging. And like, good on them for finding 2 points, but nothing happened last night that has changed your mind on the challenges they have on the blue line. And I'll start with you first with Brody. I mean, he has struggled for a long time right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that I see is Sheldon continually going to him.
Like he's the guy he was.
No, I don't think he's going to him because he thinks he's going to be the guy that he was. It's because he has no other choice.
Yeah.
There are no options. There's no depth.
I mean, you're kind of hoping at some point Liljegren would emerge. Last night he tucks one in their own net and then takes a spinorama holding the puck penalty. So it wasn't his highest focus night, you know, and Giordano gives you everything he's got, but he's not there. I mean, I love McCabe, but boy, he makes some errors. So yeah, Kip, where else are you going to turn?
All right, let's go to Brody on his on where he thinks his game is.
I think just, you know, sometimes you go through those phases, you know, maybe lack of confidence, you're not getting the bounces, and, you know, you grip the stick a little tight. And, you know, sometimes it's just taking a breath and, you know, things are okay, and, you know, getting back on track.
Is there anything in particular you do in those moments, or anyone you lean on?
No, I think you just, you know, mentally, you know, think about, you know, there's more to life than just hockey, and it's not the end of the world if, you know, you make a mistake. I know it feels like it at the time, but, you know, you just move on, try to learn from it, and, you know, forget about it.
I can appreciate that last comment about more to life. He's 100% right.
Yeah, just move on.
Just don't think I'd want to throw that one out there.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. I am the most work-life balance guy you can find. I believe it's important for everyone. It's true that there's more to life, but Ian paid $5 million in Toronto to be a great defenseman. We're asking about hockey now.
Right,
we're not asking how it's going with the kids.
I'm not going to Scotiabank Arena and dropping $600 for 2 tickets in the lower bowl to hear there's more to life than hockey.
Not asking about the well-roundedness of your situation. I'm asking specifically why you can't break a puck out.
That was tough. I listened to that was tough. I was like, oh no. And can you imagine what we'd be saying if they lost the game last night?
Yeah, and Brody's
and
like,
he said
-2,
that?
and he's like, there's more to life than hockey.
Oh my goodness.
I want to hear that when I'm paying $8 for a beer at Originals on Bayview. not 20 at Scotiabank Arena.
I have to be the softest audience for a comment like that. Like, I'm the guy who's like, totally. But it's just like, it's just not the time and place. It's just not. And also, I want to say that's the first ever TJ Brody clip ever.
Really?
On Kyper's Clippers.
Really,
I heard that voice, and that could have been anyone.
Yeah, I had to look twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that Brody?
It was, bro. Honestly, that was the most interesting thing from the entire post availability.
Yeah,
just because
it's an interesting
they
thing.
won the game. Everybody else, their spirits are high. You know, they're trying to be positive. He just sounded so down.
Yeah.
He sounded defeated.
Got to
You can
win where you
tell.
used to play. Like,
So yeah, that stood out big time.
All right, in a couple of minutes, we're going to welcome in Carter Hutton, one-time Toronto Maple Leaf, by
without
by
playing
transaction
games.
Yeah.
on paper.
Yeah.
So he's done a terrific job on dailyfaceoff.com. We're going to welcome him in after the break. All right, Disco. Easy 30 minutes right there for you, pal.
Yeah, we killed that.
Yeah,
We killed that.
We did.
Yeah.
Worked our way in.
Okay, we'll be the judge of that. But okay.
Fair enough.
More of Disco, JB, and yours truly after the break. All right, wherever you're watching and listening, Sportsnet 590, The Fan, Sportsnet 360, or our Plus channel, YouTube. We're glad you're aboard. And remember, it's Friday. Please give us a text at 590-590 for some questions, some thoughts, some comments, and we'll get our boy Disco Dan to read them. All right, let's welcome in Carter Hutton, former NHL goalie, and yes, technically a Toronto Maple Leaf, right, Carter?
It was short-lived, but I was a Maple Leaf, traded from the desert up to Toronto. I kind of came in with Campbell and Mrazek were out, and never got a chance to suit up, but I was there and got to live the lifestyle. I got the helmet behind me, so I made a lot more friends retiring a Maple Leaf.
Buddy, come visit us in the alumni room then, right?
Cash in.
Yeah, that was mentioned to me. I heard free tickets for life, so I'm going to see if I can knock that at some point.
Well, we're glad you're joining us today, and certainly is the first thing you do as a broadcaster is kind of broadcast from the net on out. We've seen so many goalies turn into broadcasters. Is that a natural feel when you watch games now for yourself?
I think so. You know, maybe because I sat on the bench so much and watched a lot of games, and they used to throw the headset on me when I played in Nashville and was playing behind Pekka Rene. And at the 10-minute timeout, I kind of get interviewed. And, you know, from there, I just kind of fell into it. And now I'm just trying to find my way in it and enjoy it. And it's something I can do, you know, from home with a young family and something I don't have to be on the road. So I've really enjoyed it so far.
So what are your thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender situation? Are you a Martin Jones guy? Like, is it comfortable enough to wait for Joe Woll and go ahead with him? Are you a Samsonov guy? A lot of avenues to choose from here for this Maple Leafs team on what they should do with their goaltending position.
You know, right now I got to say that I love what Martin Jones is doing, you know, especially a guy that was kind of counted out, signed as a number 3, you know, wasn't really given a chance. And watching him play, he's been great, right? I think he's played above everybody's expectation with a .920 save percentage so far. But from Martin Jones, you know what you're going to get. And this team is legitimately, they want to be a cup contender, right? And being in this situation, it's tricky to watch, right? Like Joseph Woll has been great when he's played, but he has a high ankle sprain, which for me is scary. I had 2 of them. I had one in college. I had another one in the NHL, which was kind of the end of my career. I rehabbed it. And as I came back, I had to get surgery. So I think that's a big question mark for me. Where is he at? And for Samsonov, this has been tough. This has been, I feel for him. Even when he gets rolled out to the media and hearing his answers and his lack of confidence is something for me, I used to always internalize. And now you see him out there, it looks so weak. And I think him getting sent down and Martin Jones just coming in and making a capable save, just giving the team some confidence is important at this case, especially the way this Leafs team has been up and down.
Can we follow up on the ankle thing?
If you got one, go with it.
What is rehab like, and how does it limit you and affect your game when you're trying to come back from an ankle injury?
So the tricky thing as a goalie, we use our ankle and our post for so much leverage, right? So the biggest thing I would find is after week 2, week 3, you're in the gym, you're jumping, you're squatting, you're doing all your normal lifts, but then all of a sudden you get in the net and the leverage you have when you're in the butterfly position or you're using your post, it changes the whole game. So I had 6 to 8 weeks after my bad one in Buffalo, and I'd get on the ice and I had no power. There was no pain. There was no immediate impact. It was the fact that I had no power. So from there, I ended up seeing somebody with the Buffalo Bills because we were owned by both teams. They sent me out to Bob Anderson, who is in Green Bay, who works for the Packers and is the big ankle and foot guy. One look at me right away, put me under to do a scope, and I ended up having to get a tightrope installed and reconstructive surgery. And from there, my ankle's been great day to day, but for goaltending, man, did it fall off. I had no movement. I had no ability. And I'm hoping for Joseph Woll that isn't the case. But this is something that is, we just think Joseph Woll is going to rehab and be back ready to go. But ankles as a goalie, it's tricky. And the way we play now, you see more and more of these injuries. And it's definitely hurts, his potential coming back. And it's something that even if he comes back from it, there might be some, delayed effects of it.
So I blew out my knee, I don't know, 30 years ago, and I could tell you like it happened yesterday, the great detail of it. So when you look at and think about your high ankle sprain and how it happened, and now I watch Joseph Woll's high ankle sprain that he had in Ottawa, and I've watched it 10 times, and I can't tell you where it was. There was no someone landing on it.
Non-contact.
There was no twist. There was nothing. Just him going from post to post, I think, and then getting carried off the ice. Is that a bigger concern than just flat out seeing where exactly your high ankle sprain came from?
I think the way the circumstances are, I think that would be a better fact that there wasn't a heavy impact, right? Because I had one in college, literally, I'm embarrassed to say this on air here, scraping my crease. And I just caught an edge, tweaked it a little bit, and I played the rest of the period. Then all of a sudden, as the period went on, it got worse and worse, and I was toast. But then my second one in Buffalo, we were playing the Rangers, and Rasmus Ristolainen, good friend of mine, and had decided to put a guy right on top of me, got caught, my knee underneath me, and the last thing to pop was my ankle, which was more of a contact, which was a heavier one. But same rehab, same thing, because it's just an injury, and they struggle with this in the NFL. I learned a lot. They invested a lot of money into ankles and the education because they lose a lot of man games because of ankles. And similar to goaltending, guys are landing on players in the NFL just like goaltending when we're not playing, we're not prepared for it, right? We're in our stance, guys are falling on us, and there's a lot of pressure. With Wolls, I feel like it's on the better side of it, I would assume, because of the way it went down, looked very innocent.
Yes.
But at the same time, very concerning from my standpoint.
Wow, that's terrific stuff, Carter. Great feedback on high ankle sprains.
Leafs fans right now are going, uh-oh.
I want to get your thoughts on Samsonov, because we would have probably thought that he was going to squeeze another start here soon. There's not a chance they go to Samsonov in Vancouver, so kind of sets him up for Seattle on Sunday. But just this reset that they had in the last 14, 15 days for him, which was clearing waivers, on paper being sent to the Marlies, but not actually ever playing a game. And in your case, would you have ever wanted to start with the Marlies before coming back? Or can you see in today's game a goalie, any goalie, just going into a scenario where it's all in my head and I don't need to play another game until I'm back in the NHL?
Honestly, I feel like it's a tough situation, right? So I only had one chance in my career when I hadn't played in a while, and I was in Nashville, and Brené was on a run. I think that was the year he was up for the Vezina. I didn't win it, but they came to me and they offered me a chance to go play in the American League on a conditioning stint. And Pekka, he had come back the year before from a staph infection and came back and went and played in the American League. And he kind of came to me and advised me not to go play, just because the fact he just thought that there was just too much to lose if I didn't play well, if it didn't go well. And I stuck by my gun. But I also wasn't in a situation when Samsonov was in, where he's been playing so bad, it's been a rough go. And for me, it's hard to play yourself out of this situation if you aren't getting games. So for Samsonov, he needs to get in the net at some point, unless this plan is to just, let him try to reset himself over time, which I thought in his last start, he looked better, but still not the guy we saw last year. And for me, there's obviously a reason why Washington let him walk. And you look at this year, Tree Living taking him to arbitration, only giving them 1-year deal. There's obviously something they see in this guy that is, not up to par to give him that contract. But my only concern moving forward is, with the Leafs and my experience, my short time with them and other teams, is there's so many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to off ice, when it comes to the team, when it comes to strength coach, sports psych coach, all these different elements. This poor guy is living in a bubble where everyone's poking prod. I don't think that makes it any easier too, without playing the game where you can just be by yourself.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The idea that all these people who are there to help you, it might just be the best thing to just let me go be a hockey player like I've been my whole career. That is a lot of pressure. Looking around the NHL, what are your thoughts on like the lack of kind of true number one guys, the way the workloads are kind of spread out? I just think we have a tough time assessing who's good and who's not, and who's the 20th best guy and the 40th best guy and the 60th best guy. Guys get in 33 games, and we really struggle to assess it right now.
Yeah, it's a tricky time. And I feel like always it's the contracts that you give to a guy that isn't your, there's a handful of guys you could say, your Hellebucks, your Vasilevsky. And this point now, guys starting to separate themselves, Ottinger, Allmark, Demko, these guys that have been pretty consistent now for a few years, where these other middle guys, it's pretty much like, can you get hot for me? Can you get hot at the right time? And you look at even what Montreal's done this year, holding on to three guys, like Jake Allen's value's got to be through the roof. Even looking at Detroit, looking the way Alex Lyon has played, where who is going to play well at the right time? You almost need that platoon of guys to see who's going to play. Because if, as an organization, you look at Edmonton, they commit that money to Jack Campbell, leaving the Leafs. And now it's like, we're stuck with this deal. He's doing so bad. Stuart Skinner, even last year, I thought Jack Campbell was a liability playing in net, where you need to almost have that extra third depth guy, where I think this signing by Tree Living, having Martin Jones as the depth guy, is looking like a genius right now. So it's very tricky to find that element. And I think that the difference between like number 20 to number 80 isn't a lot, but the difference in that top 10 guy, but it needs to be homegrown, right? It's hard to go find a franchise goalie in free agency because nobody's giving him up.
Shesterkin's a franchise type of goalie, regarded as the second best behind Vasilevsky over the last few years. I think he gave up 4 and 16 or 17 to Vegas last night.
That happens.
It does, but it does it go to show you that if you just have mediocre goaltending, you don't win no matter who you are anymore?
Yeah, I think so. I think good goaltending solves a lot of problems, right? I always used to joke around about that. Like, you play in a game where you give up one extra goal and you lose 3-2, but you played great. Now all of a sudden it's the end of the world, where maybe you make that one little extra save and then everything's good. We win, everybody's happy. So it's a tricky situation, especially being the goalie.
So you talked about how hard it is to get a number one guy. The only guy you hear out there right now is Saros, as kind of a guy who's been a number one Vezina level guy who's available. The rumors I think I read today were like 2 first-rounders wouldn't get it done, or, big asks. How comfortable would you feel trading for a guy like that? Kind of, as you mentioned, 1 to 10 is really, really good and tough to get into, but you can't be sure what you're getting.
I feel like it depends on where you're at in that situation, right?
Yeah.
If it's one of those things where we have to win now and, you need to get that guy, or I look at a team like New Jersey, who's had struggles in net, where you have younger goalies and there's no veteran presence, where maybe if you're investing in a guy like Saros, where you think over the next few years, he gives you a chance to win, or if a team like Calgary is going to move on Markstrom, someone who has term. But right now, again, you're committed to, at least you know what you're getting with a Saros, where sometimes it's almost having that, the James Reimer, Martin Jones, Alex Lyon, these guys that have come out to establish themselves in a better price range. Where do you find that fit, and who's going to get hot at the right time, which is always the good thing about goaltending, which I think I kind of fell into that category when I played. It was consistently, I was never in that elite class, but when I got hot, I could keep games rolling, and you just got to get going at the right time.
We're seeing what we thought was a very good hockey club in the LA Kings, and Cam Talbot, if I'm not mistaken, is the All-Star, one of the All-Star goalies in next few weeks in Toronto.
Yeah.
But is that a team for you, Carter, that needs maybe a Saros?
Something to push them over the top. Like, I love Cam Talbot just because, similar guy came up with them. But again, this team needs a little bit more. I think if they're going to make a serious run, especially in that Pacific Division, there is just too many heavyweights, and it's going to be an absolute dogfight, I feel like, in the West. And again, another team for me that I get concerned about in that picture would be Colorado, right? Georgiev, they came out the other day, the GM, just about managing his minutes, right? Where they want to keep it down, but if we don't have a backup or a solid guy to go to, where's it going to be? So I think LA could be that team, but my thing is, you just made that move last year to get Korpisalo, right, as a rental, and now you're going to go out and get Saros. At least he has some term, but it definitely gives them a chance, but that West Division is going to be tough to run through.
It is interesting to me that, like, Korpisalo can't make a save in Columbus, goes to LA, and he's an awesome goalie. Talbot struggles the year before, goes to LA, and he's a really good goalie. Like, how much does structure help a goalie, increase their save percentage?
Well, did you pull out my numbers from when I went from St. Louis to Buffalo?
No, I haven't.
Right? I led the league in stats, right? Goals against, save percentage, playing for St. Louis Blues. The next year they win the Stanley Cup. And not to take anything away from Jordan Binnington, but it was kind of a plug and play at that point. We had a veteran team. We had the big defenseman, very predictable hockey. I go to Buffalo, where my first year I thought I played fairly well at the times. We struggled. We had a lot of issues. It wasn't just me. But I felt like the game became more predictable. And I almost tried to do more with my game instead of letting the game come to me because of the unpredictableness of our play. So I think you always rely on structure, and you look at the teams that are consistently good. And those are the teams that play from the back end out, that have the D-man. Even look at Vegas last year. I know Aiden Hill was unbelievable, but like Brassard was really good for them. Thompson was an all-star. Is that a product of the surroundings? You look at their back end, and I believe that structure and good defense is what's going to get you over the hump.
Yeah.
Carter, terrific stuff, man. What's with you goalies? Like, we got Valley with the Rangers and Mike McKenna. Like,
they're all good.
You guys were way more intelligent than I thought, bud.
I know, yeah, we had you fooled, eh? So that's, I don't know. I wasn't an athlete, so I became a goalie, but I can talk. That's right.
Really thought you guys were nothing but targets. Terrific stuff, Carter. Thanks for joining us, man, and keep up the great work on dailyfaceoff.com.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Carter.
He's good.
Really good. The ankle stuff,
yes,
really concerning. Really concerning.
Well, just the mere fact that he came back from one and then had to have some sort of procedure.
Yeah.
To correct it eventually.
God, I forget the word he used.
There's not anybody
sort of line, he had to have something put in.
Like if Joseph Woll broke something, he would have been back by now.
Yeah, you're right. Well, here you go, Martin Jones. Martin Jones, keep playing well.
Do we have a clip from Elliot Friedman from 32 Thoughts on the goalie market, or the Leafs looking for one maybe?
So the teams that are looking for goalies are New Jersey, Carolina, LA, Colorado, possibly Edmonton. Toronto-wise, I heard the problem for Toronto was they wanted to trade like a 6th-round pick or something for a goalie that could help them while Samsonov was down.
No chance.
They couldn't get anything. They couldn't even get traction, and they didn't like anything that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And people wanted more than that, and they were like, we're not doing it.
A 6th-rounder. Throw in a box of donuts or something with a 6th-rounder.
It's like going into Harry Rosen with $10 and be like, I can't get anything. What do you mean? This is ridiculous.
You can't get cashmere with a 6th-rounder?
No Chris Merino wool sweater? Nothing?
Do you think when somebody tells them that, like, does Elliot laugh at them?
You thought you could get what for what now? No, because he has to preserve that relationship.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll throw that one out there for you.
Yeah, we need Yele to give us a read before we have to break here.
Yes, we got some giveaways for All-Star Weekend. You guys have obviously been doing it here on the show, but we got more.
Yes.
So make sure you're locked and loaded right now. Get ready to text in today's keyword. But from February 1st through the 3rd, all the top stars around the NHL are coming to Toronto for All-Star Weekend, and we'll be giving away tickets to different events and episodes here on Kyper and Bourne from today through January the 26th. Today, we have tickets for the NHL All-Star Skills Competition featuring 12 All-Stars competing in a series of challenges like the Rogers Hardest Shot for a chance to take home $1 million. To enter for your chance to win, text in today's code word, Hardest Shot to 590. 590. And, of course, we have another code word coming at you on Monday's edition of the show.
Do we know who the 12 guys are yet that are in the events or in the skills?
Connor and Austin.
That's it. Yeah.
You'd assume they put Willie Nylander in there being a Toronto host, or Marner. You got to think it's kind of lean towards the hometown guys.
You would think all those guys would be in it, all the Toronto guys.
Draisaitl, Leon is in it.
Vancouver boys. They got 32 guys in the game.
The only thing I wonder is we're going to hear some guys with injuries bail it all. I hope that's not the case here. Anyways, hey, Disco, great job.
Thank you.
We still got another hour to go on the Real Franceschi and Bourne show. After the break, Iain MacIntyre to talk about Rutherford. Welcome back into the Real Kyper and Bourne show. This is our national edition. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver, Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. We're glad you're aboard. Got Iain MacIntyre. Does a terrific job covering the Vancouver Canucks. Sportsnet.ca to join us in a few minutes. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, and Disco Dan Franceschi in for the Sammy McKee. And he is knocking it out of the park right now. Just to give you some ideas how Disco has taken Sammy's job basically away from him. I don't know. I don't know any other way to describe it, JB.
Yeah.
So, like, just to give you an idea of how much Disco's stepped up the game, this is his lineup right here, okay? And it is like 6 pages deep, and it's on both sides, and it basically could be the whole show in itself. I could leave the next hour, and you'd be fine just reading this.
Just read this, and it would be a thorough show.
So this is like a lineup from like Harvard.
Dude, this is a university report here on last night.
And let
in
me
the
just,
NHL.
I got a Sammy lineup to compare it to.
Yeah, you brought that one. That was one of his better ones, actually.
Yeah, this one, let me just unfold this Tim Hortons napkin, and there's Sammy's. For those of you that can't see the monitor right now, it just basically says, say hello at 4 p.m. We have 2 guests, and say goodbye at 5:57 Eastern.
Did he spell "bye" correctly?
No.
It was the "you."
He's got one spelling mistake guaranteed every night.
Yeah, it's a tough day for Sam because it's not like he lost his job, but his job description has changed now because he can't go back.
Oh, I feel bad.
We
for
will
Sammy.
never
I didn't intend
go
to
back.
Do that, guys. That was not my intention for Sammy.
We had 10 questions for Iain MacIntyre.
We expect a lineup like this every day now.
You want to know some stuff about the Canucks?
Yeah.
I'll tell you all kinds of things.
Going on with the Canucks.
Did you go home last night, or did you just work on this all night?
I did. I have been known to do those things, though, Kyper. I could tell.
Really?
Yeah, I could tell.
Another.
When I was in the morning, Kyper, it was a different story. That's a different world out there.
Well, Sammy's gonna have to get in here just a little earlier now.
Yeah.
It's all good, though. It's all good. We're glad you're aboard. We're forever grateful for our Sammy.
The Canucks are the NHL's first team to reach 30 wins this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're 7-1-1 to kick off 2024.
That's not the big story today.
No?
No. Jimmy Rutherford, contract extension, agreed to terms on a 3-year deal.
But I got a page on that, too.
Oh, yeah. It is remarkable, the turnaround from last season where, Rome was burning.
It was chaos. It was chaos. Bruce Boudreau's situation was interesting, right in the news. And Rutherford spoke quite a bit last year in the media, often being critical of his head coach. They had let Rachel Doree go at the start of the season. They had hired new assistant general managers. They had, talked about the Miller contract was going to be a, should we trade this guy? Are we rebuilding? It was mayhem. And here we are. And they're in the President's Trophy hunt.
I do have a point on this, actually. Something I thought about. We watched the Calgary Flames yesterday.
Yeah.
If you're a Flames fan, you'd probably point at Vancouver and say, see, it's doable.
100%.
But the problem is, I think they're vastly different scenarios. I think Vancouver was in a position where they felt like they had the horses to do it, and it just wasn't happening for whatever reason. Insert new coach, changes, boom, it happens, team's playing well. Even on balance, since Jim Rutherford came into power there, they had the bad year last year. But prior to that, he comes in midway through 2021, that season, going into 2022, and they were a 30-15 team. They were not that bad. So you could see it. My thing would be, if you're a Calgary fan, you got to probably try and be as logical and as rational as you could be right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's welcome in Iain MacIntyre, Canucks columnist, Sportsnet.ca, does a terrific job on the broadcast. Iain, thanks for joining us. And I don't know if you caught all of us just describing, at least trying to describe the turnaround in such a short period of time. Like, outside of your daily activities following this team, like, for the people out west in Vancouver, has it totally sunk in, like, this remarkable turnaround?
I actually don't think it has.
Yeah.
Listening to Rutherford's press conference this morning, of course, Francesco Aquilini, the managing owner, was there as well. And we don't often hear from Aquilini, but when Aquilini talked about the team being first overall, 5 players and the coach going to the All-Star game in Toronto, and he said, as far as he knows, 1989 Oilers were the last team that had that. And whether that's true or not, it's exciting and it's fun to be a Canucks fan again. He was marveling as he said it. This is the owner of the team who still sounded in semi-disbelief. Everybody is enjoying this an awful lot. I can tell you that, because there has been enormous frustration and dejection about the state of this franchise until recently. It's amazing. I went back and looked, because this is what, January 19th.
Mm.
It was January 16th of last year, only 368 days ago, that Rutherford had a press conference where it looked like the team was in utter ruin. The brand was at its nadir, certainly this century. And it just seemed like the work ahead was impossible. And 12 months later, here we are, the team's in first place in the league. And Jim Rutherford's got a 3-year extension to continue running this team till he's 77. It's amazing what's happened here the last 12 months.
So what are the pivotal markers, the pivotal moments to take us from 368 days ago to going, I don't know, they might be in the President's Trophy. We talked yesterday about Canucks or Oilers, who you got in a series. It's like, I don't know, how do you pick against Demko versus Skinner? So how did we get here?
Well, 362 days ago, right after that press conference, or soon after, Jim Rutherford fired Bruce Boudreau and he brought in Rick Tocchet. And it's the first time in a long time where there had been complete alignment from top to bottom in the organization. And Tocchet has just done an amazing job. I mean, there's, at that press conference that I referenced by Rutherford last January, he talked about major surgery. And people wonder, well, where was the major surgery? There were some major decisions. Obviously, the coach was a big decision. They traded Bo Horvat, their captain, which led them to do other things. They brought on Philip Hronek on defense. And then they bought out Oliver Ekman-Larsson, for which Aquilini agreed to pay $19 million for him not to play for the Vancouver Canucks. But that buyout allowed them to bring in other players in the summer. Carson Soucy and Ian Cole, who have been terrific on defense, Teddy Bluger, Pius Suter, to give them strength down the middle. And of course, they made the Zadorov trade at the end of November. So there has been a lot that has happened. But I think at its core, at the epicenter of all this, is Rick Tocchet and bringing in a system of accountability that had not existed previously. And it's worked because the core players that he inherited have all embraced these new standards and embraced the idea that nothing that they do as an individual is as important as the team winning. And you're seeing, another incredible year from Elias Pettersson. You're seeing an unprecedented year, at least for this franchise, in a defenseman in Quinn Hughes. Thatcher Demko's having a year that has him in the Vezina Trophy conversation halfway through. Rick Tocchet, it's either Rick Tocchet or John Tortorella as coach of the year at this point. And, Brock Besser's had a tremendous bounce back year. And JT Miller, who maybe symbolized, at least on the ice, a lot of the dysfunction that the team was going through. JT Miller having an incredible year as a two-way matchup center. It's getting all these core players to buy in, and they've set a new standard here. And it's a standard, I can tell you, because I've covered the team a long time, it's a standard that hasn't existed, certainly since the Sedins retired, but possibly even slightly before then, because the team was on decline the last couple of years that the Sedins played. But there is a standard that's very reminiscent of the great teams that the Sedins led to a couple of President's Trophies, went to the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. I'm not making those kind of bold predictions for this team, but there's a lot of similarity in the feeling of what's going on now with these Canucks and what happened then more than a decade ago with those Canucks.
We're talking to Iain MacIntyre, Canucks broadcaster, columnist for Sportsnet.ca. Iain, nobody has followed this team closer on a day-to-day basis, and we do hear from coaches the term accountability, and everybody wants it, but not everybody can get it like Rick Tocchet or as fast as Rick Tocchet here. What have you seen that makes him successful while other coaches continue to struggle a little bit?
Well, I think he has proven through action that he's consistent in what he's preaching. And it doesn't matter whether you're, Nils Höglander, who's near the bottom of the lineup or was at that time and got sat out, or Andrei Kuzmenko, last year's 39 goal scorer, who's, if there's a crisis, because there always seems to need to be one. If there's a crisis for the Canucks, it's what's going on with Andrei Kuzmenko, who's been a healthy scratch 5 times. Or even if you go back to a spell in late November when the team, the only time they've scuffled it, and by scuffling, I mean they were winning one, losing one, which was a lot better than they did when they were scuffling the previous 3 seasons. But there was a period of time where Rick Tocchet was telling us in the media, PD's got to be better, and PD knows he's got to be better. So he handled it in a different way. But every player, top to bottom of the lineup, is being held accountable. And because, again, the leadership group and Quinn Hughes, as a young captain who's still kind of learning on the job, he's been tremendous in this as well, that leadership group is taking that culture, taking that responsibility onto themselves. Tocchet has said a couple of times recently, he doesn't even need to tell the team this because they already know this. And that's another thing that's very reminiscent of when the Sedins were at their peak and this franchise was one of the best in the NHL over a period of about 6 years, is that it's the players setting the standard in the room. And Kyper, all the great teams, I would even say every team that wins the Stanley Cup, you have to have the players who are setting the standard. It can't always be external. So where Tocchet has succeeded and others have failed is that he's been consistent with this standard, and he has somehow, in a very short period of time, going back to when he came in last January, established this trust with the top players where they're taking it on themselves. I also think those top players had all been here for a few years. They'd seen the tire fire. I think they were all embarrassed about how poorly the team had done because obviously they're good players and there were other good players around them. I think they were ready for Rick Tocchet. I think this is a perfect example of the right coach at the right time for this group.
Yeah. You mentioned how there always has to be some sort of fire to put out. After the Nylander contract got signed, we started being like, ooh, Pettersson, let's talk about him every single day. Why does it feel weird? It feels weird that this guy is someone who's been great. He's someone they want. He's someone they're willing to pay. He's an RFA, and it's not happening. What am I missing about what's going on there?
Well, you're not missing anything. It's a perfect summary of the situation. And it does feel weird. I mean, even Patrick Allvin, who I had a sit-down interview with on the Canucks' last road trip, admitted this is an unusual situation where you have an RFA, not a UFA, an RFA, who the team has some control over and is eager to start negotiations and make him by far the highest paid player in franchise history. But Elias Pettersson has wanted to wait. And he made it very clear, it was an interview with our Elliot Friedman back in August, where he made it clear that he wanted to wait so that he could focus entirely on having a successful season. And obviously, had there been any traction in negotiations last summer, maybe he wouldn't have waited, but things weren't going anywhere. So it's Elias Pettersson, the player, who has shut this down. I know his agents would love to get a deal done, but right now it's Elias calling the shots. It is an unusual situation. Rutherford said again today, pledged his devotion and love for Pettersson and how much he wants Pettersson to remain with this franchise. But for now, because he's an RFA and not a UFA, it's a profound difference. And one of the big differences, say, with Nylander and others, there's not that dire urgency yet with Pettersson to get a deal done. It's different than even, last year with Bo Horvat as a Canucks captain who was going to be a UFA, and it became this constant kind of drag, among other things, on the team that they hadn't got a deal done. Of course, eventually Horvat was traded. It's different than that. But I'll say this. You can only wait as an organization to a point. And although it's accurate that the Canucks do have control, they can make a qualifying offer. I don't think anybody's signing an offer sheet for Pettersson. And if they do, the Canucks are going to match. But they want to know what's happening going forward. Alvin told me, there's a pecking order of how they tackle contracts. And Pettersson, he didn't say this, but it's obvious. Pettersson's at the top of the pecking order, and they need to know, what he's going to cost and for how much longer in order for them to continue to build the team around him. They've got another really big RFA in Philip Hronek. They've got a pile of UFAs who have played really well in supporting roles for this team, that they would like to keep some of those as well. But it all gets back to how much is it going to cost for Pettersson. And if they get past this season, and Jim Rutherford alluded to this today as well, once it gets past the regular season, then things get a lot more serious. So if nothing happens this season, certainly between the end of the season and before qualifying offers go out ahead of free agency this summer, they need to know one way or another on Elias Pettersson.
It's an interesting thought in terms of, the more we know on what the number is going to be, the more we can start planning now. So I ask you this, he's loved out there, but is there a chance if he drags this thing out a lot longer that, there could be a shift of the way the fan base think of him?
I think there's already some discontentment in the fan base, but Canuck Nation, you guys are really familiar with Leafs Nation. Discontentment is never far away. It doesn't take much to provoke it, but certainly there are some people already who I think are frustrated that because as fans, you're not investing only your money, which is important to the team. It's that emotion that you invest, and you invest it in players more than individual players as much as anything. And so there's a lot of people who love Pettersson and obviously want him to stay, who are, I think, concerned, maybe more concerned than Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin are to this point about him not coming back. But again, one way or another, the Canucks are going to need to know before free agency. I don't think I wouldn't say it's impossible that, say, they end up offering a QO and that Pettersson plays next year on a one-year contract. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I'd say it's extremely unlikely, because once you get to that point, the balance of power is all with the player. I think the Canucks will want to look at their options before then. If they actually feel like there's a realistic chance that Pettersson isn't going to be back, they don't want to leave that decision until next year's trade deadline. They want to look at that before free agency before this summer, so that they're still operating at least from a little bit of strength.
Last one for me, and are you done on Pettersson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just what the Canucks would do at deadline this year. What do you think they'll be looking at? Will they be aggressive? Or, I mean, they haven't been buyers in a while here. This is exciting to go to the store now. What are they going to be shopping for?
Well, they've been quietly, I would say they've been quietly aggressive all along. If you look at some of the things that Allvin has done from last season, there's been so few trades this year, but if you run through the ticker, it seems like the Canucks are involved in half of them. And they've been able to get deals and good deals, picking up Sam Lafferty right before the season, getting Casey DeSmith. I mentioned the Zadorov trade. They've made good moves along the way. There's no reason to think, based on that they wouldn't continue to be aggressive. But I would say, and this might be my single biggest takeaway from today's press conference, is that Jim Rutherford may as well have jumped up on the podium, grabbed a microphone and said, "Let's go," because that was his message. His quote about there's a risk in making moves and adding players, but he said, importantly, there's also a risk in not doing anything. And he said he's seen teams that he thought were really good, and then he's surprised that they do nothing to make themselves better. Having witnessed so many losing seasons here the last decade, I can tell you nobody is complacent now about the opportunity that the Canucks suddenly find themselves with. And it may be an opportunity that they didn't expect. It may be right now, maybe it's not sustainable. Maybe it's a different conversation 2 months from now. But right now, they're looking at my notes, 30, 11, and 4. They've been, from start of the season until now, very consistently one of the best teams in this league. I think they're going to do everything they can to maximize this opportunity and see where it takes them this spring.
And Iain, right now, you can't argue that Jim Rutherford couldn't have picked a better time to sign an extension here. 3-time Stanley Cup champion, the turnaround. Like if
Jerry Maguire and show me the
if Jimmy went into Francesco and said, "I want to be the highest paid president," did Francesco argue much on that? Like, any idea how well he did?
Yeah, actually, I don't, and that's a good question. Who would be the highest paid president right now? Would it be Davidson or would it be Shanahan?
I got to think that Brendan Shanahan. The feeling is around $6 million US, in that ballpark.
Same.
Yeah, Shanahan's had, I'm guessing, 3 contracts at least.
Sounds
with
right.
Toronto.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jim at age 74 and on his second deal, I suspect didn't do quite that well. But the bottom line is, this guy's won 3 Stanley Cups. He's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He doesn't need this job. And to me, I actually wondered when he took the job, and I believe he was 71 when he took it. He's 74 years old now. Whether it was just sort of one last thing that he wanted to do, and he would put a team in place. He would groom his successor in Patrick Allvin, certainly in terms of managing the hockey operations department, and then might happily step back and say, my work is done here. But clearly he's still driven to win. He wants a 4th Stanley Cup. I don't think the money was probably the overriding factor, but I think he's probably done pretty well. It's one thing about, the Aquilinis as owners, and there's been lots of criticism, some of it justified. They have never shied away from paying, whether it's, players, they almost always are paying to the salary cap limit or over, with the various mechanisms that allow that, whether it's going out and getting Jim Rutherford. I'm sure he didn't come cheap to begin with, to come out of retirement, move his family from Raleigh, North Carolina to Vancouver. I don't think that was an inexpensive proposition for the Canucks. So if the fact that Rutherford has achieved what he's achieved to this point, and really as good as the Canucks have been the last 12 months, it still feels like this is kind of the launch pad. Like this isn't the destination yet of where they're going because their core players are so young. They've got other moves to make. They may be able to get some cap flexibility yet. I don't think there was probably a really tough negotiation about what it was going to take to keep Jim Rutherford. He was their guy. Francesco Aquilini went out to get him. It's turned out to be the right choice. Almost everything that Rutherford has done, and certainly in the last year, everything this hockey ops department has done seems to have been the right choice. It's money well spent to keep him here.
Really appreciate your feedback on the Canucks and a big day in Vancouver, knowing who their general is for the next 3 years. Iain, enjoy the rest of the season, man. It's tell us what it's like to just cover a team that just keeps winning
all the time.
Let
Sounds
us know.
Fun.
Well, it's a refreshing narrative just for a change of pace. Success, optimism, enthusiasm, all those things surrounding the team that have been foreign for the last 3 years.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, terrific stuff. Thank you. Iain MacIntyre. The other thing, I mean, we could talk to him the whole hour on the Canucks, but just the quick turnaround on the blue line. Of course, it's led by the elevated play by Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, but the Huronic trade
helps
him get there.
Yeah.
And listen, the pickup of Carson Soucy is no small deal. I know he's been hurt. Zadorov helps.
Yeah, Zadorov, who's got his warts.
Yeah, he's a roller coaster.
Right? But the presence that he brings every night, like 5 guys on the ice know when he's on the ice.
Yeah.
Right?
Including his own teammates, because they're like, we just got to double check he is where we want him to be.
The other name I want to drop is Adam Foote. Yeah. Like, we don't really talk about Rick Tocchet. Everybody's heard Rick Tocchet. But nobody's talking about Adam Foote. And I think he should you should have that same conversation that you have with Coffey in Edmonton, calming these guys down. When you think about Adam Foote and where he's been and what he's seen and the experience that he's had with Team Canada's and Stanley Cup champions and playing with a guy like Ray Bourque. I mean, come on, let's talk more about Adam Foote on that bench as well.
Yeah, certainly worth his due. It is a huge part of their turnaround. Part of the reason it's easier to believe in what they're doing. Doesn't seem like a fluke when there's major changes and a good coach involved.
All right, Sammy, game time. Disco Dan. Sorry, it's an automatic on game time.
It's game time.
It's game time.
Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Play responsibly. All right, guys, we got 4 games on the slate today in the National Hockey League. Quieter night. Tomorrow's Hockey Day in Canada, so we got a busy Saturday slate. For tonight, here's what I was looking at and what caught my eye earlier today. So the Panthers hosting the Minnesota Wild tonight. I don't see value on the money line. They're minus 200 favorites. You're probably not putting any juice. There's not enough juice there for value purposes. But I will go puck line. Minus 1.5, plus 125 for the Florida Panthers at home against the Minnesota Wild. We've talked about, hey, this team just yesterday lost their captain, Jared Spurgeon, out for the year. He's having 2 surgeries. Not 1. He's going to have 2. So I kind of like Florida to get it going, to take advantage of a depleted Minnesota team, pick up a win tonight on home ice. I was also keying in on the New Jersey Devils, and I know their season has been a lot of ebbs and flows, right? Peaks and valleys, ups and downs for this team, and they've been the model of inconsistency this year. But they're playing Columbus. So they're 7th in the Metro is New Jersey. The lone team below them is Columbus. You can get New Jersey at minus 160 on the money line. If you want to get a little adventurous, plus 155 on the puck line. I also don't mind the over in that game as well, 6.5. I mean, geez, I think we could see some goals. If Columbus can score a little bit, then we got some offense there. And the last one that was interesting to me, you got the Islanders and the Blackhawks in the later game. That's a 8:30 p.m. puck drop tonight. I kind of like the over. Set at 6. I kind of like that over. I think the Islanders are kind of poised for a bit of an offensive breakout here. It's been a little quiet from them offensively as of late. Let's get some offense.
Sold on that. I like New Jersey in particular against Columbus at some point here. New Jersey's going to start to win some hockey games. So
feels that way.
Maybe a goalie will give them a save one night too.
I don't know.
You don't like him, eh?
Well, Hamilton's out.
Yeah,
the talk is that he may come back in the last week, 10 days. But
timeline.
if they're in it, if there's a push, if there's something there's a slight chance he can come back. If not, they'll write him off for this year. But you lose your horse. It's hard back there.
Yeah, you don't get saves. You don't have your number 1 D. Jack Hughes has not been playing a ton. I still think that Columbus team is in such disarray that I'll take him in one
Bourne,
game. But
second night of a back-to-back for Columbus, and they just got shut out. So let's see. I mean,
yeah, like that one.
Ripe for the picking.
All right, take us out. I think you got to say it all again.
Yep, that was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Again, visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary. Bet365 must be 18 plus, Ontario only. Play responsibly.
Well done, sir.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll tidy it all up with news and notes. Pinto in for the Ottawa Senators.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. What else have we got?
Do you want some text? Text us at 590 590.
Oh, absolutely.
Active text line.
Is it
active? There's a lot of, it's flooding.
All right.
And we need your rating and review over Disco Dan.
Just
compared to our Sammy McKee.
You just need to know the quality and depth of his work is all I need to say. This document right here is something special.
All right. More Real Kyper after the break. The Kypreos, Justin Bourne. Disco Dan. I know we're going to get to texts, and I certainly I'm hoping, Daniele, that you can find a few that rip Sammy.
We've got a few, actually.
Just, yeah. So before we get to that, a couple of news and notes I want to get into. Pinto's coming back. He's just 22 years of age, coming off a very emotional suspension. Can he be any good at all? Like, when I think about guys that miss training camp.
Is that there's no expectations, right? I mean, like.
Well, he's an Ottawa Senator.
The team's in last by, I think, 12 points in the Atlantic. They're way in last. He has missed half the season. Any help they can get will be welcome. He's making league minimum. I just think they're looking for him to show that he can be a contributor and a piece of the solution for them.
You got a thought?
Elliot had also mentioned that they're entertaining the idea of working on a long-term extension and that there had been talks surrounding that. So that's a consideration.
They just couldn't do it this year. They just had no space.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was the issue even coming into the season when obviously being an RFA, they couldn't find the room, or we thought as to why he wasn't even going to be with the club initially. We learned obviously that he was suspended for the gambling, but 20 goal scorer a year ago in his first NHL season. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have that kind of guy into your lineup. Yeah. So seeing what he is at 22 years old, and you kind of go from there. And if he's a piece you can add into this mixture of young players that you're hopefully trying to build around and take that next step with.
Love it.
Many clubs this week have had their pro scouting meetings. Yeah. And, of course, what comes out of those is a strategy on what it looks like going into trade deadline. Earlier this week, I wrote an article for the Toronto Star. In it, I mentioned there's still as many as 20 teams that have aspirations on not only still thinking that they can make the playoffs, but maybe winning a round or two.
Well, I got to tell you, I read your article, and you wrote, there's as many 20 teams think they can make the playoffs, and I thought, I think you're light. I think you're.
I was conservative.
Yeah.
22, 23.
I mean, you get 8 and 8 in each division that are in. You're at 16. There's at least, 4 or 5 on the outside looking in the West that think they can get in.
One of them played last night. We watched the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Calgary Flames. And, thanks to a horrific run by the LA Kings, the Calgary Flames sit today 3 points behind them, albeit they've got 3 more games played than LA. But
half a season to make that up.
Shouldn't be an issue if you feel like you can push forward. First of all, I mean, we spent our first hour on our Leaf edition talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, but we never really we never spoke of the Calgary Flames and what we saw last night. And I got to be honest with you guys, I was not impressed. And I know they've played some good hockey and they've had some good goaltending. Even Vladar last night held them in it. He gave them a chance to tie the game.
I was surprised by your texting last night.
But I
did not like the Flames.
No, did not like them. in terms of now watching them give everything they have and still falling a little short. And I get it. Like the Colemans, Mangiapane, to me, was their best player last night.
Yeah.
But he really shouldn't be their best player last night. That should belong to Jonathan Huberdeau. It should belong to Lindholm.
Do you like Huberdeau?
Not even in the least.
Oh.
Not even in the least. Like, I saw a guy that didn't necessarily hunt down pucks. I didn't see crisp passing. I don't see a guy driving hard to the net. I didn't see him pull anybody in to make a pass. Mm-hmm. Like, he is, for last night, I thought Huberdeau really struggled, and I think there's been a lot of games like that. I'm not watching as much as, say, Eric Francis or some of our other great analysts out there. But I mean, I saw a team that I don't know how hard you want to push thinking you're getting in while you hold on to assets.
Watching the game, I kind of felt like the bottom six was more entertaining and just they're more engaged than the top six guys.
Yeah, listen, I love
it's weird.
Zari
like,
there.
Zari, Sharon Govich.
There's a future there.
Yeah.
There's a future there.
100%. But like they were more tantalizing than some of the guys that you're supposed to be getting the production from.
I didn't see any push from Lindholm. I didn't see game breaker.
Lindholm's
I didn't see a guy leading necessarily. I just saw a guy that's just in the mix.
I would say a bigger concern is, let's say they decide, okay, we're not quite it. We are going to sell. Chris Tanev didn't particularly sparkle.
No.
Like he didn't go, God, if we had that guy, So, it's...
And I just don't know what teams can pay Calgary if you don't think for sure he's signing with you. Mm-hmm. And we've had this conversation the other day, but like Leafs can't give up a first rounder for him if
they know he's signing. If they know he's signing,
they know he's signing, and you really feel like you could win with him in the next 2 years or 3 years, and I would imagine he can get no problem on the open market this summer. He can get a 3-year deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I imagine if you're the Leafs, you're thinking we're picking after 20. Quite likely if you trade for Tanev and things go well. So do you want to trade the 24th overall pick and then sign him for 3 times, like give him Brody's contract somewhere around there, 3 times 3, 4?
I don't think you can get
3, 4, 5.
I think you're in the high 4s, 5s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How attractive is that? I don't know. I would also say, from Calgary's perspective, I wonder what is the cutoff to say, you know what, we should probably let's focus on what's next.
Yeah.
Like let's look ahead, and the guys that we have here, the veteran pieces. Huberdeau, you can't move because the contract is just an onerous. It's hard. It's difficult. That's the problem with that. And he has to play well enough to even make it remotely appetizing to have somebody take money off of that when you do trade it away. So then what's the point, though, when like a Lindholm, right? Do they just move him? Because they're essentially committed to walking him out the door, if that, right? So what is that cutoff for them to determine, hey, we should probably just be sellers and figure out what's next?
Lose another 4 or 5 or the Kings get hot or whatever.
Because they're 3 points technically out of a wild card spot. They're right there, I guess. Right? They're kind of on the periphery.
Listen, in my next life, I'm coming back a defenseman.
Mm.
They are so few and short.
Yeah.
And that's why even a guy like Hannafin can turn around and say, I want 8 years and I want 7.5.
Yeah. And he'll probably get it.
And we will never mention Hannafin in any Norris conversation.
He'll just be.
But that's just the going rate for 20 minutes. And Chychrun's not that far off from that conversation, guys. And now we're starting to hear more and more. And I mentioned his name a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
That, like, where does Ottawa think they're going with being in the position that they're in and thinking about signing Jacob Chychrun to $7.5 million? Like,
given the money they're giving out to
and
D
Shabbat,
already.
And you're gonna sign Chychrun too? Like, it makes no sense.
Tough to see, Kip, for sure.
It felt like with Ottawa too, if you look at the build and the stages of their build, the moves that they had made like 2 years ago with Pierre Dorian in charge. Felt like that was them indicating, okay, we got to take this step, but it hasn't happened.
Oh, for sure.
And those guys, right? Like, and those
Claude
guys
Giroux
are not.
and Tarasenko, and
they're not there yet.
yeah, the big goalie moves.
And the money's been invested in a lot of different pieces there. It's hard for them to now pivot to what the actual next step is, the proper step to get into that, even that playoff conversation. Never mind anything further than that, but just playoffs.
Yep. Should we do text?
Yeah,
you know what? One more thought. I know I mentioned the LA Kings yesterday. I think Rob Blake met with the media and gave his head coach, Todd McLellan, a vote of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, that they are so lucky being out west in that market where, like, imagine if that team was in Canada right now, the heat that they would be taking.
It's
day to day.
I know.
Dropping 10 of 11.
Huge trade to get Pierre-Luc Dubois. Philip Deneau had signed a big contract. Fiala was, a nice ad. Kopitar, Byfield, Kempe. I mean, they've made moves there, and I like their back end. Gavrikov was another big contract they gave. My point is, there are expectations to succeed when the rebuild's over. You're a team now. You're trying to win, and you're right. So I wrote a little bit about coaches today, and McLellan was one of them where I don't really know, it's tough to say like, hey, this guy's the issue or whatever, because their top end talent is not that high. But I don't know. It's the seat's got to be warming up a little bit.
But it's just funny because here we were talking about, either Brad Treliving or Brendan Shanahan coming out, maybe calming the waters on Sheldon Keefe. We don't hear a word. The media out there, and I don't know, it could have been one or two people who follow the Kings, goes, hey, what about Todd McLellan, your head coach? Would you ever move on from him? Oh, no, not at all. And then it's over.
Yeah.
It's just over.
Came out and handled it. That's nice.
All right,
I'm
Disco,
jealous.
what do you have for us? Let's get the overall feel, the vibe of no Sammy and all Disco.
Well, first things first, we had somebody say, oh, what about the Edmonton Oilers? They won 12 in a row. Yes, the Edmonton
We're
Oilers.
tired of talking about how
they exist.
Yeah.
Good job. 12 in a row.
Okay,
Keep rolling.
Can I just say one thing on that streak?
Yes.
Okay. So now it's regarded as the longest winning streak ever.
Ever for a Canadian team. Right?
Yeah. And I think they passed the Montreal Canadiens at 68.
Yeah.
But there was no 3-on-3. There's no overtime. How many in that streak? How many overtime games?
1, 2, 3.
Okay,
maybe 4.
Is that really fair to call them now? Can we not just say it as is? This is the longest winning streak ever in the salary cap era. Can we just not say that?
In the modern day 32 teams.
That's a good point.
Why does a 67 or 68 Montreal Canadian team get bumped off on that?
Are you new to this business?
No.
We gotta do the whole hyperbole thing. They're the greatest team.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Are you not the guy that said, I don't know who tweeted it out, that the Leafs were on a 4-game losing streak?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, somebody else said, no, it's a 4-game winless streak. And you're like, that's garbage. It's the losing streak.
Probably sounds familiar. Yeah, I mean, I don't even believe what I'm selling here, Kip. I know the 67 Canadians are better, the all-time great teams.
It should be over. If you want to be known as a team that has won 12 games in a row.
You got to win 12 games.
You got to win 12 in 60 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how you pass the 67 Montreal Canadiens.
We can also qualify it because they do it in other sports where it's like before or after the merger or whatever.
Yeah.
Or to your point, Kyper, salary cap era. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with
Football, it's Super Bowl era. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because football's been played for hundreds of years, right? Just like it's totally fine.
You flush 80 years down the toilet when you start tagging everything salary cap era, but don't worry about it.
Some poor guy wanted us to talk Oilers, and we were just like, nah.
we're
nothing to do with your record.
All right, let's go.
Put a damper on. All right, so we do have. I'm actually. I got to say, I'm pleased. Thank you for all the positivity in the text line. Disco Dan, way better than Sammy McKee. He's a real pro. That no name on that one, but thank you.
I will say, we love Sammy's unproness as well. But there's no doubt that this is a thoroughly prepared individual here.
No, this show is just really about being unpolished.
That's all we have. Hope you like a lack of polish. We got that in spades.
There was another one in here saying Disco Dan equals 10 out of 10. So thank you. I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
That's it. And no other Sammy bashing happening. There was somebody saying, I thought Sammy said he doesn't gamble. Once he left his seat open, Danny jumped in and gambled his job away.
Yeah, Sammy gambled his whole career on one day off in Vegas.
You and Sammy gambled the moment you agreed to do a show with me.
No doubt about that, man. There's no doubt. But, I hope that Sammy he's in Vegas. He's watching the Golden Knights game tomorrow, I believe. I hope he's, having some day drinks somewhere, playing some hands of blackjack. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hope he's enjoying his day because he's getting killed here.
Big Saturday matchup, the Vancouver Canucks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. You give the Leafs any shot at winning?
Yeah, you know how I feel about this Leafs team. Whenever it's a weird game, you think they're going to get smoked, they show up.
Did you do a stat on Leafs bouncing back off of 3 or 4 game losing streaks? And the record is phenomenal.
So for the record, I didn't. But last night on Hockey Central, we had... No, but yes, I did tweet it.
Yes.
And I owe credit, and I can find wherever the credit is to someone else here, Joseph Zita, who did this. But yes, the last 4 years under Sheldon Keefe, they have bounced back from 4-game winless streaks.
15-2-1.
7-0-2, 15-2-1, 15-1-4, 8-2-4. Like, killer after losing 4 in a row.
It is pretty impressive.
So...
It is pretty impressive.
I'm not going to say they can't be decent here.
But earlier in the week, we had Nazem Kadri on, and he all but admitted that there's winning, and then there's winning against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I got to think, for all the success that the Vancouver Canucks have had, they're going to want this one really bad. Yeah. For no other reason that we're the top team in the league, and we still have to start 4 p.m. local.
I honestly,
that'll always be a discussion point. Every year.
I can't believe that still happens. I mean, I'm grateful it does.
Ain't us.
I don't want to watch a 10 p.m. game, so that's great, but it's pretty crazy. You know why it's crazy too? Because they play at 10:30 here when they're in San Jose.
That's true. Yeah, Anaheim,
we're
LA Kings.
Starting at 10 there.
ESPN primetime down in the States, we're 10 o'clock with the Kings. It happens.
Oh, what a comment I just got. Disco Dan is our Martin Jones. He saved the season of Real Kyper.
That's even better than Holmberg. That's better than Pontus.
I kind of like Pontus, though. It's got a special place in my heart. Pontus always has a special place.
There you go.
He's one of your guys on this show, Kyper.
He is.
Now, the other thing I noticed is you've been wearing a Bills hat all week, and you didn't bring it on the show.
I mean,
that's okay. We want to see your face.
I told him to wear a tux today, so this is, just no Bills hat was showing up.
Do you own a tux?
Not a full blown tux. I have suits, obviously. But
okay, well,
do you own a tux?
Think about it. Yeah, I've got a tux.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
No.
I got a guy.
You got a guy?
I got a guy.
I'm coming.
That we can talk about. But no. Big one for my Bills this weekend, Kyper.
What do you think? They got a shot against Taylor Swift?
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. If here's what I will say. Measure of true love is if Taylor Swift makes the journey to Western New York, that'll tell you that.
You show up in Buffalo in January. That's commitment.
With a shovel. Nothing behind the glass.
Yeah.
You got to get out there.
Shovel to the seat.
That's right. That was incredible, by the way.
Buffalo, love you. Truly.
Bills Mafia's the best.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, great job.
Thanks.
Today.
Yeah, good work.
Thanks. A lot of fun working with you. Well, welcome back, Sammy, under any circumstances. Hey, even a crappy lineup sheet.
Yeah, like
we love
give him some tutoring on it.
Okay, our thanks to Carter Hutton in the first hour, and then Iain MacIntyre giving us wall-to-wall coverage on the Vancouver Canucks. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Give us a rating and review if you get a chance. We'd love to hear from you. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Disco Dan, Franceschi, signing out.